the Nation of Islam, Minister Khan.
In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, the one God to whom all praise is due, the Lord of the world. We thank Allah for His Prophet, for the scriptures that they brought. We thank Allah for every black man and woman who ever struggled to raise the level of our awareness. And I shall be eternally indebted to Almighty God, Allah, for blessing us, the black man and woman of America, with a divine leader, a divine teacher, and a divine guide in the person of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, messenger of Allah. I greet you, my beloved brothers and sisters, with the greeting words of peace in the Arabic language. Assalamu alaikum. To those of you who don't know those words, they simply mean peace be unto you. To those of you who are nationalists about Igani, and to those of you who are of no particular ideological persuasion, let me say to you, peace be unto you all. May I, at this point, ask if the brothers who are with me, if you'd be so kind as to just take a seat. If you would, thank you. And watch from wherever you are and enjoy whatever Allah might bless you to say. I appreciate and thank you for your desire to secure Brother Farrakhan. I am honored by that wonderful spirit. But if Almighty God, Allah, does not secure me, there is no one who can. John Fitzgerald Kennedy had a lot of security around him. But when the time came for him to return to his Maker, security couldn't stop him. We must be security-minded. We must think in terms of securing those who are trying to secure us as a people. That is a duty imposed upon us. But by the same token, we must recognize that the only true security is one being in tune with Almighty God and the laws of righteousness and the laws that govern the universe in which we live. And then we must work as long as time permits us to work and do the very best that we can. Try to stay here as long as we can, and when we can't, then we have to check out. But I'm very grateful to my brother for that spirit and that desire. Always good to watch, and always continue to watch. But I know that I can put no trust completely in bodies. I can only put my trust completely in the supreme power of the universe. And in that I don't have any fear whatsoever for my life. Praise be to Allah. This is a wonderful week of historic meetings and lectures that you have been having. I would say that the auditoriums that have heard the profound speakers that have appeared should have been full. But unfortunately, we are in a state where we need to be revived in the spirit of concern for ourselves and our people. I'm grateful to those of you who came out this afternoon. I'm grateful for the words of Maulana Ron Karenga. I'm grateful for Sister Abu Bakari and the members of the Republic of New Africa. And I'm grateful for each one of you who took time from your classes or your schedule to be here this afternoon. I would like to start this conversation with you this afternoon by talking about a diamond and how a diamond is fashioned, and how when the light strikes a diamond from different angles, the diamond shows up different colors or reflects different colors in the light. From whatever angle you may be on looking at that diamond, you may see red, you may see orange, you may see purple or green, depending upon the angle that you are standing at as you focus upon that diamond as the light strikes it. There has never been a great light to emerge among us that there were not many diverse views of that one great light. If we study the scriptures and study history, though Moses was one man, the Israelites and the world have many different views of that one man. Though Jesus was one man, he had 12 disciples. And those of you who are familiar with Scripture, if you read Matthew's account, Mark's account, Luke's account, John's account, then read the writings of Paul, each one of these men are viewing one man, but from their own particular perspective. And they bring to their view of that man their own unique historical perspective of that man, their own unique relationship to that individual. So it is with Malcolm X and with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Depending upon what angle you stand at, you get a different view of Malcolm, a different view of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I would like to this afternoon share with you my view. My view of Malcolm and my view of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and my view of the national scene and the international scene. Why your view, Brother Farrakhan? Is your view the view? No, my view is my view. The view can only be the compilation of all views, which at the essence must be the view and the truth. And this is why, as brothers and sisters who are getting ready for the 1980s, in what we would call the last lap in the struggle for our liberation. We need to understand more so now than ever before the validity of each person's view, even though their view may be at variance with our own. I don't even want you to say that's right unless you think about it. And it is right. You see? Or that you come to the conclusion that it is right. But if I only see it my way and not your way, then I will try to force my way on your way, and then I rob myself, and if you will be robbed, I may rob you too. Prophet Muhammad of Arabia was one man, and there are many different views of that one man. The Quran is the view. But Christians have a view of him. Jews have a view of him. Agnostics have a view of him. Different sects of Islam have a view of him. And that view is dependent upon our ability to interpret the events in that individual's life and to correctly interpret those events. Malcolm was not a lightweight fellow that lightweight thinkers can handle. Let me just throw that. I'm not suggesting at all that I'm a heavyweight. I may have a lightweight view. But I am in recognition that Malcolm was not an ordinary man. He was an extraordinary man. And when you have extraordinary men, men that are out of the ordinary mold, you cannot look at them through just your and my simplistic view. We really have to grow and grow and grow in order to be able to properly assess, analyze, and interpret the life, the work, and the value of that particular man. So it is with the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. My concern as a student of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and indeed a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is that because he is ours uniquely, and because we may not have properly assessed him, it will take time for us to grow into the understanding of not only the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Malcolm X, but it will take time to assess and understand the impact of Marcus Garvey, Noble Drew Ali, W.E.B. Du Bois, Paul Robeson, and all of the great thinkers that have emerged out of our experience in North America. Just as it takes years to produce a diamond, it takes years to produce the great giants of humanity that alter the course of history of a people and even a world. Those kind of men don't pop up. It's not like a toaster. You put in some bread in 3 minutes, it pops up. That's my man. No. When your man pops up, he usually pops out as quickly as he pops up because he has no root to remain in time. Though the body of man is finite, ideas and truths that are in harmony with the immutable, unchangeable laws of the universe, that are in harmony with the universe and its order, those ideas are as long as time endures. So when a man is produced by time, he is not readily perceived by his contemporaries. Hear me good, brothers and sisters. And I think it's vanity on the part of the contemporary of diamonds that glitter and shine and dazzle us with their magnificence. It is vanity to think that we have perceived them in all of their splendor. As a student and follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he continues to grow on me and in me. I continue to grow in understanding of him. And as a man who has walked in the footsteps of Malcolm, my view of Malcolm is not the same today as it was 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago. Because it is said that until and unless you can walk a ways in a man's shoes, you really don't understand that man. And I think that time and circumstances have caused me to walk a little ways in his shoes. So I have begun to understand Malcolm a little better today than I understood him yesterday. I've begun to try to analyze more deeply the complexities of his mind in transition. And the more I see in Malcolm, or into Malcolm, and the more I experience what I have experienced to come to this point in my own development, the more I see the tremendous wisdom of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and how I must share that view that God has blessed me with of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and of Malcolm X with you. In my own personal judgment, I don't feel that the struggle tomorrow will be as fruitful as it must be unless we review and critically appraise and analyze the men that have brought us to this hour in our struggle. Most of us who have been through the 60s have been sharpened and honed by experiences that make us look back on some of the things we said and did yesterday. And I'm sure each of us are saying that if I could have done it over, I would have done it a little differently. And if you don't think that way, I wouldn't suggest that there's something wrong with you, but I do suggest that maybe you have not grown. Because anything that is alive, truly alive, is constantly evolving, constantly changing, constantly growing. So your view today will never be the same as your view yesterday. It will always, or it should always, increase, amplify, develop. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us once that whenever the people long for a change, that there is a natural law that works in the universe and its order, that a man will be produced that will bring that change about. it is nature's law, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, that when people long for something, desire it intensely, that the answer to their longing doesn't drop down out of the sky, but the womb of some woman somewhere at some point in time is going to produce a baby that is born to answer that longing. We may not know exactly where that woman will be at that particular time. And we may not know who her little baby is when we hear it crying as all other babies do. But ultimately and eventually, time will bring that baby from obscure ignominy into the forefront of struggle. And that baby will make that contribution to satisfy the longing, not of this present generation, but the longing that generations of time have produced. And as it takes time to produce a diamond, it takes time to produce great leadership. In the scriptures, and you have to pardon me, I'm a scriptural man. I love the scriptures of the Bible and the Holy Quran. It may not be hip to most of you. I understand. But I want to show you how hip the books are if properly understood. Now, if these books are not properly understood, properly used, then they are of no value in our struggle for liberation. But since nearly 1 billion people are wrapped up in the Holy Quran, and over 750 million people are wrapped up in the Bible, we can't just throw these books away when most of our own black brothers in America and throughout the world are wrapped up in some kind of religious rite. We have got to be able to see what got them wrapped up. And if they're being wrapped up wrong and being mummified in their wrap, then we've got to dig into that which wrapped them up, then unwrap them and wrap them better in that which will liberate them rather than that which will enslave them. And both of these books have been tools of mischief making and enslavement. I don't deny that. But it's not that the books have no value, it is the misuse of the book. Jesus said, everybody all right? I love you. Jesus said, speak. And ye, notice the tense, shall find. That's not a jive statement to pacify people that are catching hell. Ask, and it shall be given. Knock, and it shall be open unto you. But there's an action on our part that's going to bring about a reaction to our actions in the future. Hear me? Seek. And there's nothing that you have found that you have not actually been seeking. If you start looking for knowledge, you're going to find it. If you start seeking answers, you're going to find them. If you start asking the question, you're going to be given the answer. If you start knocking on a door, it will be open unto you. Now, that don't mean that somebody on the other side is going to necessarily open the door. But it means the more you knock on a door that's closed, that means your desire is to get in. The longer the door remains closed and the more your desire to get in intensifies, soon you're going to find the key or you'll break down the door. But you will get in. Now, what does this represent? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught us that this represents a law that is working in human nature. This law is what produces your scientists, your great discoveries, your great mathematical achievements, your great giants. Somebody, maybe in another age, began seeking, began asking, began knocking, and an answer came in another age where maybe the knocker, the seeker, and the asker has gone on. But the condition persists and remains, and here comes the answer. And when that answer comes, that answer stands out among men. You can't deny that answer his place or her place. When that person shows up, at first it's the strangest thing you've seen. And it usually speaks strange sounds. Because people who are contemporary with greatness don't understand the forces that went into the workings to produce that kind of person that brings that kind of view to the world that actually changes people's whole way of looking at things. Those kinds of men didn't just pop up. Those kinds of men and women are produced out of the longing of a people for change. All right. If that is a principle, let us see whether that principle is applied in the Bible and in the Holy Quran, and how. How does it apply to Malcolm? How does it apply to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad? How does it apply to you and me? You got a few minutes to be with me, right? You don't have to run away, do you? Oh, okay. Look, brother and sister, let's look in your personal life. How many times have you been married to somebody and a condition comes up in that marriage that's intolerable? You get off quietly to yourself and you start seeking. And this thing got to stop. I don't understand why this is going on. I don't like it. I wonder. You start knocking to get out. So you go to your husband, or he comes to his wife and says, baby, look, what's going on? You may get an answer, you may not get one. You may get a smack upside the head. If you're mistreated as you seek, mistreated as you ask, mistreated as you knock, then your desire intensifies. And pretty soon, you desire to be delivered out of that condition. Now you can deliver yourself by saying to hell with it and walking on out. But sometimes your desire will be so intense and your commitment so great that you can't seem to get out of that relationship. And all of a sudden, somebody will come up and they will meet you. And they will seem to have answers for your particular dilemma. And all of a sudden, your love for that individual will begin closing down. And your love for this answer will begin opening up. And you walk right out of that relationship and form another. History teaches us that whenever another nation deprives a nation of freedom, justice, and equality, which are natural rights of every human being, the deprivation of freedom sets up a longing for freedom. The deprivation of justice sets up a longing for justice. The deprivation of equity sets up a longing for equity. And the more that longing is denied, the more that longing intensifies until a mother will bear a child. And that child will be the answer to that longing for that people. And that will bring you a Moses for Israel, and Nkrumah for Africa, or a Castro, or a Mao Zedong, right? Now you look at these men. These aren't ordinary men, brothers and sisters. By no stretch of the imagination are they ordinary. Or you could say Marx. White folks produced that longing too. Or you could say Jesus. You could say Muhammad. You could say George Washington. These short-term longings produce short-term answers. If the longing isn't intensified over a long period of time, you don't have the dynamic view of the nature of the cosmos as you find in those that have been under long years of oppression. When they begin to erupt and produce their leaders speak into the core essence of life itself. That's why the future of the world and its problems is coming home to the black man and woman of America. That's why your view should never be to others first. Your view has got to be to yourself, because your oppression has been different than any oppression anywhere on the earth and more intense than any other oppression anywhere to be found. Not even in South Africa is the oppression equal to the oppression in white America. There's so much pressure that you are under that it has twisted you into the most grotesque of human beings, yet the most marvelous of human beings. Potentially. I must say that. All right, just follow me out a little bit, please. Now, dear brothers and sisters, I want to say a few little things that help us to see, hopefully, what point I'm driving at by God's grace. Galileo, Christopher Columbus, Machiavelli, Nietzsche, some of the other whites who have done great exploits for their people and their world. If you notice people looking at the Atlantic, wanting to cross it, wondering what's out there, all of a sudden, a woman in Genoa, Italy, produces a child that says, I'll do it. I'll go on across and see what you all been looking at. And he did a great thing for his people. He answered their longing, their seeking, their asking, and their knocking for knowledge. When whites went out into space to see what was going on the moon, there has never been an African society that I can recall that romanticized the moon like Western writers, Western scholars, Western romanticists and poets They all talk about the moon. By the light of the silvery moon. Naturally, white folks have always wanted to know about that moon and what was on the dark side of the moon. Keep on seeking, keep on asking, keep on knocking, and you produce from the loins of a man and from the womb of a woman a child with the mathematical ability, with the knowledge of physics, the knowledge of chemistry, the knowledge of astronomy, and all of these related sciences, to be able to catapult a man out into space to find what men have been seeking, asking, and knocking for hundreds and thousands of years. Well, what about our longing? Moses is just a name, brother and sister. But that name can be applied to any situation that fits those circumstances. What the Bible is talking about is an oppressor and oppression. And the way the oppressed view the oppressor, and that whole gamut of relationships, then all of a sudden, out of the longing, here comes Moses. And there's one thing about the oppressor. They always understand this law. So they're always scanning the horizon to see when your womb is going to produce that one. Because when that one comes, he don't give a damn about the oppressor. Hear me good now. He ain't like you. You want to snuggle in bed with him, romance with him. See, that one ain't like you. Don't give a damn about your thinking, because he's not produced from your age. He's produced from the years of seeking, asking, and knocking. So when he comes, you don't recognize him, because he don't talk your crappy language. He talks deep into the essence of your being. And that's why it takes you years to come to grips with that man, because he don't book nothing with the oppressor. He wants that bastard out of the way. And that's why he'll say, by any means necessary, get that sucker off my back. Oh, God. That's what makes me sick about some of you romantics over mountains. It's so nice to romanticize a man. After he's gone, it can make no demands on your living behind. It's easy for you to say, oh, Malcolm was my man. Shut up! Damn it, if he was your man, get up and do what he was doing. Carry on his work. Then you wouldn't have to hold yearly remembrances. Your remembrance would be in your constant application of the principles that the man lived and died on to produce a better world for the black man. That's why we got to give our leaders one day a year to remember them. Sure, excuse my language. Thought I was going to say that. I don't mean to be like this. You know, but brothers and sisters, I've experienced something in my short years that has made me see certain things I just must share with you, but you have to be patient with me, if you will, okay? I didn't come just to say a few words and run out the door. I came to linger with you a while. Number one, because I love you. And number two, because I realize that the theorists and the theory has already been laid down by our thinkers. And what we must do today is synthesize the work of our giants. Because there's no more time to talk. It is the age of fulfillment. And fulfillment don't look the same as talk. Fulfillment don't look the same as hope and faith. The day of hope and faith is all over with. Now you got young bucks coming up that don't give a damn for hope or faith. All they want is
to be free. I don't know how you feel, but not only are you not in tune with the giants that your loins produce, you're not in tune with the generation that you have produced, and that's why that young generation will walk by most of the leaders that wouldn't spit on them. Right? Bear with me. Now let's look at Nkrumah, Castro, Mao Zedong. When we look at Mao, most of us in the West, I can speak for myself, I have a deep appreciation for Mao Zedong. You know they say he killed a lot of people, but hell, you got to do that. If you want to down him for that, well, spit on the white man. The hell do you look like? Being proud of Jimmy Carter or that whole succession of gangsters. They are murderers in business. You want to deal with African leaders because they're over there? Don't you know, brother and sister, that in order to bring our people to where we are, somebody got to die? And some of us are going to die because we want to oppose the legitimate aspirations and longings of our people to be free. And we cannot wait for you to change today. We have to march all over you if that is necessary. There comes a time when people don't have no more time to wait on you to make up your mind and change. There comes a time when you have to pay a price for being recalcitrant in the stubborn way of being an opposer to the liberation of your people. Now, if Mao understood that and went about making him a nation, the world applauds him. Great man. He had to be great for a billion Chinese to love him, to be unified under him, and for the world to recognize China after so many years of the world's disrespect of China and Chinese people. Is that true? You know that Havana was a playhouse for America while Batista was in power in Cuba. Isn't that true? As the whole of Latin America and the Caribbean has been a playhouse for Europe and America. But when Dr. Castro rose up and wanted to do something constructive for the people, why? Because a man that is born out of the longing of the people cannot bow to the will of the oppressor. It's not in him to bow. Right? That's why you can't follow a man like that and be a coward. That kind of man that's born out of the longing of a people to be free, he makes demands on you. Yes, he does. And I'll tell you right now, if Malcolm were alive, 90% in this room wouldn't be with him. Because if you want to hear a man rap, he could rap more beautifully than anybody that raps. But he wasn't about just rapping. And it's not about beautiful speech. It's about the action that comes behind speech. That's what makes words bond, and that's what makes bond life. All right, moving to the conclusion. Why do you point out Castro, Mao Zedong, a man like Nkrumah? Why do you point out George Washington? Look at the impact that these men have had on their nation and their people. The impact of George Washington on America is felt today. The impact of Abraham Lincoln on American society is felt today because he did something for his country and for his people that history remembers. But now, is it an accident, brother and sister, that Moses, Jesus, and Muhammad have been remembered not for 100 years or 200 years or 500 years? Is it an accident that these men have been revered for thousands of years? No. Do you know why? Please, everybody get settled. I want to take a little time, but I want you to settle and dig into what we're trying to say. Do you know why Moses is so revered for so long a period of time, brothers and sisters? Let me explain. The elements of the knowledge that the man brought was so profound that there are scientists right now that are digging into Moses' law and teachings, and they're finding validity in the message of Moses for 1979. Ain't got nothing to do with Israel. Haven't got anything to do with Jews. There's a principle here that is involved that we want you to see. The Jews have long ago forsaken Moses. But the man's teaching has validity in 1979. Jesus is greatly revered, right? Why? Because white folks have promoted him throughout the world? Not just that. Because there are elements in what he taught that transcend time. There are elements in what he taught that speak into the very nature of the human being in his struggle for mastery of himself. And that's why the message of Jesus continues to be talked about, even though the essence of that message has been corrupted. Prophet Muhammad of Arabia, nearly 1 billion people still adhere to Muhammad. I shouldn't say adhere, pardon me. No adherence. Nearly 1 billion people hold up his name and claim Muhammad as their leader. And the reason he is alive today, in essence, more so than he was when he lived in Arabia, is because generations after him read his writing and see more into Muhammad in 1979 than people saw into him who walked with him. Paul saw more into Jesus than many disciples that walked with him. All right. Now, let's look at one more aspect of these kind of men. Brothers, sisters, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said to us that the wisdom of Moses was to last for 2,000 years until the birth of Jesus. When a man's wisdom is to last for 2,000 years, that man, in the short time that he has to live among men, has to do things that his contemporaries may judge as inferior, unkindly, and wrong. But the example that he has to set goes far beyond his time. And the example that he sets has to deal with not only what his people will confront in that immediate time, but it deals also with what his people will confront in days going on down the line. They must be able to look back into that prophet's life and find an example of the truth that he taught. Now, I'm coming up to today. You know, it's easy for you to understand your father and your mother And sometimes even your own mother and father become difficult for you to understand when they go against what you desire because they see further down the line than you do. Have you ever noticed when your mother didn't agree with something that you desired, how you rose up against your own mother? Is it because your mother hated you? Or was it because the experience of your mother made your mother to see what you may not have seen? So your mother trying to guide you in a way that was against your desire, you opposed your mother. But maybe now mother is gone, father is gone, and you see that incident in retrospect and you say, you know, mama was right. I wish mama was here so I could tell her how foolish I was to have opposed her like I did. Do you know that men who come out of the longing of a people who have been oppressed for years, those men ain't ordinary men. That is what we consider divine men. Because those men bring about profound changes in the lives of the people, which brings about a change in the history and the destiny of that people. Now, where are you going, Farrakhan? Follow me. The oppression in America kept bringing out of our wombs men of greatness that spoke to us, not only of their time, but of the time before them that produced them. Nat Turner and Denmark Vesey. Go back and look at our brothers. They came from black women, didn't they? But those men spoke to our oppression, didn't they? And they spoke to our need to be free of that slave master, didn't they? They didn't want to play with the slave master, and they had no feelings about offering him if necessary to get their freedom, didn't they? And so the slaves that were their contemporaries, they said, oh hell, we can't walk nowhere with Nat Turner and Denmark Vesey. But isn't it easy for us to stay here in this roster and extol Nat Turner? Oh, that is great, man. Oh, yeah, Nat Turner. And you read your poetry, Nat Turner was a great black man. Nat Turner. And you go on. But if somebody says, are you willing to offer somebody for your freedom today in 1979? Look at that radical dude. Nat Turner would be at our place with you in 1979 as he was when he was born. Yes, he would. Yes, he would. Let's be honest now. Let's be honest. Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser, David Walker. Have you read the appeals of David Walker? David Walker was no lightweight man. Frederick Douglass was no lightweight man. But if Frederick Douglass reappeared, he would be out of place today. Somebody would call him a rabble-rouser, an agitator. Yes, they would. And maybe some of us that are running around here saying that we're for Malcolm would call Fred Douglass an agitator. Because you don't seem to recognize the greatness that you extol when it comes before you in another form. There is nothing new under the sun. It just keeps changing form, manifesting itself differently in every age. But in every age, we treat those minds the same way. Right. All right. How? Thank you, sweetheart. As I looked in that beautiful little baby's face, her alertness and her alive disposition, it makes me understand why we must put an end to theorizing and philosophizing and begin to apply the methods of liberation so that that young girl and these young boys that are here won't have to bear that burden in their generation because we shirked our duty in ours. You understand? All right, now let us tie this all up
complete.
Marcus Garvey came to us from Jamaica in the West Indies. There were many, I use that term West Indian advisedly, but that's the term that has been applied to that area of the world. But you know, all of us are the same people. Wherever we're found on the earth, we're the same people. But when Marcus Garvey arose on the scene after being rejected by his own in Jamaica, our people in America, and many of those who are considered West Indians and of West Indian descent, and many black Americans in this country accepted Marcus Garvey. Marcus Garvey's nationalism and his fervor, born out of oppression, brother. Marcus Garvey didn't only light up America, Marcus Garvey's activity lit up Africa. The oppression produced out of the Western Hemisphere a giant in Mr. Garvey. But don't play yourself cheap. Because there was no oppression in Jamaica, or in Trinidad, or in Barbados, or in Central America, or in South America, or in Africa, equal to this oppression in the United States. Right? Now, whether we want to admit it or not, when Elijah Muhammad came on the scene, a man from Georgia who only went to the 3rd grade of school, but a man who, growing up in the South, seeing black people lynched, feeling that pain. I've never seen nobody lynched in that sense. I can only empathize with that. But when somebody grows up looking at it and then understands the depth of the history of it, and yet comes up in the Baptist tradition but sees that this is not an answer to his people's problems, and all of a sudden he leaves the South and goes to the North and meets with a stranger out of the East, one Master Farrakhan Muhammad, an Arab. No wonder the Bible makes the parable of the Good Samaritan. You wouldn't have to apply the word good to Samaritan unless the other Samaritans had not been so good. And I'm saying to my Arab Muslim brothers, you have not been good where the black man is concerned. Neither there nor here. I got to say it because you're going to have to change or judgment is coming your way. The fact it's already changed. Yes. I want to say to my Muslim brothers and sisters, I'm not a Muslim because I want to be an Arab. Hell no. I am a Muslim because that's the nature in which I'm created. I'm not a Muslim because I'm adopting your religion. I am a Muslim because I have chosen to be myself. Now, the word Muslim is an Arabic word which only means one who by nature is born to submit to the will of God, a righteous person. I have not accepted righteousness because it's the Arab way of life or the Christian way of life. I've accepted righteousness because it's the nature in which God created me. I'm born to be right and exact. Hear me now? Yes, sir. Now, I don't want you to just say yes, sir. And then we got to think about what we say today. If my heartbeat is not mathematically right and exact, when you put your stethoscope there, you can see that the rhythm is off, and you say, boy's having trouble. Because there's a certain mathematical mathematical exactness about life. That if we're not in accord with the mathematical exactness of life and we're out of touch with it, we begin to die from that moment that we are out of touch with the rhythm of the universal order of things, and we are a part of that rhythm. If I accept being right, that's not accepting your way. It's accepting God's way in the nature of myself and my forebears. We didn't need Muhammad or Moses or Jesus or Abraham to tell us what is right in Africa. Right, if you go to the parts of Africa where you think are the most uncivilized, you will find codes of righteousness there, and nobody had to teach them. It emanates from their nature. You don't have to teach black people charity, because black people are not by nature niggardly. Whatever we have shared with the world. So when I accept those natural principles, because I've lost the way to myself, don't accuse me of wanting to be you. I just want to be me. But unfortunately, black folk in the West have been so uprooted from the nature of themselves that when they accept Islam, automatically they have to be Arabites. Or when they accept Jewish faith, they've got to be made into something else. So we never get a grip on ourselves for trying to be something else. God don't want you to be somebody else. He wants you to be yourself. But when you don't have no love and root in yourself, and you want to imitate the cultural life of everybody else. Now, brothers and sisters, if Islam is true, and it is, and water is real, and it is, and an agent of life, water does not alter the nature of no seed that it falls on. It only brings out what is within. If Islam is life, Islam should not alter me and try to make me into you. Islam should make me more of myself. And if it is an instrument to make me you, then it's being used in an imperialistic, slave-making way, and we must reject it. Do you hear me? Christianity, when we accept it, we must be made white. What's wrong with accepting the truth and being us? Why must I accept Marx and be made into them? Why can't I bring my unique expression to whatever truth is in Karl Marx? Must I see it like him? Must I be a carbon copy of him and Angel? Hell no, I am me. And I'm a black man, and I bring to this earth a very unique experience. So whatever ideology you bring me, I must view it from the uniqueness of my own historical experience and perspective. And then I render unto that thing a service as it renders unto me a service. Now, whether you realize it or not, Elijah Muhammad was no lightweight man. I'm not saying this because I'm afraid to look at the man, but I must say this to all of you brothers and sisters. Don't just pass him up. Don't just walk by him and say, well, man, he ain't nothing. He got to be something. If Malcolm came out from here, and if Farrakhan came out from here, and if Wallace came out from here, and no matter whether you agree with them or not, and Muhammad Ali came out from here, and every major man in every major city in America that was a Muslim minister was profound in his impacting on that city, and we came from a teacher, how in the hell can you deny that teacher and say that the students were greater than that teacher? Listen, now I'm coming to you, brothers and sisters, because I'm going to reason with you today. Certainly students outgrow their teachers. That's what teachers are for, to make their students greater than them. If you study Marcus Garvey, study Noble Drew Ali, study the great leaders of the past, which one of their disciples do you remember as you remember them? I say Marcus Garvey. Which one of his disciples do you remember? I say Noble Drew Ali. Which one of his disciples do you remember? I say Elijah Muhammad. This was not a selfish man. We just needed to come to understand the man. He was not selfish. He was similar to Moses in that Moses had an impediment of speech. Pharaoh didn't feel that Moses could ever be made clear. So Pharaoh laughed at Moses just like America laughed at Elijah Muhammad because Elijah Muhammad was not a great talker. But as Moses had Aaron and Jesus had Peter, Malcolm came out of prison. Now, brothers and sisters, Malcolm was already great. Make no mistake about it. The essence of greatness that was in Malcolm was not produced by Elijah Muhammad. The essence of greatness that was in Malcolm and that is in you is produced of the Creator and the suffering and the trials and the tribulations that all of us have been under. It has shaped us and marked us out for greatness, but since we had no avenue to express that greatness, we expressed it in drugs and finger pockets and the good old party life. And that's what Malcolm did. Is that right? His greatness was expressed like we express ours on this college campus, in the party life, in the good times life. But even in that, he showed signs of outstanding brilliance. He was a thinking hustler, as most hustlers do think. But Malcolm was an outstanding thinking hustler. Yes, he was. Are you saying that to discredit him, Brother Farrakhan? I beg your pardon, brother. To discredit him would be to discredit myself. No, but we want to look at it now. When Malcolm was a young boy, according to his autobiography, he wanted to be a lawyer. Isn't that true? What did the teacher tell him? Oh, Malcolm, maybe you should try being a carpenter. Because nobody wants a black lawyer. I don't want, my people don't want one, and your people don't have confidence in them. Ironically, when I was in the 6th grade, I wanted to be a doctor. I played the violin. My teacher asked me, Lewis, what do you want to become? I said, I would like to be a doctor, Miss Hurley. Good Irish teacher I had. You know what Miss Hurley told me? Oh, Lewis. Lewis, we must face reality. White people will not go to a black doctor, and neither will your own people have confidence in you as a doctor, but you do play the violin beautifully. When I met Malcolm in 1952 or 3, I was playing in a nightclub in Boston, Massachusetts. And this man had come to town, Malcolm X. He was shaking up Boston with his preaching against the white man. And I was a musician, and I didn't want nothing to do with that kind of quote-unquote radical talk. So as I came out of Eddie Levine's nightclub on Math near Columbus Avenue, going across near Wally's Paradise into the Chicken Lane, where we all used to hang out in between sets, there was this tall, really stunning man in a brown tam, brown coat, brown suit, brown shoes, brown gloves. And a friend of mine said, Gene, they used to call me, I'd like to introduce you to Malcolm X. And he looked down at me. How you doing? And I shook hands with him and got away immediately. I was scared of him. That was my first encounter with Minister Malcolm. 3 years later, in 1955, I began to go to college in the South and saw the conditions of the South and black folk in the South, and went to the Christian church. And as a black man going into a white Christian church, I had to sit in the balcony. I said, man, this is jive. I said, something is wrong with this thing, and I was getting the hell out of Christianity. I knew this wasn't Jesus' teaching, this ain't God's teaching. I prayed for the destruction of America. I hated her. Because as I traveled through the South and have to stop at a bus stop, you know, and black people had to go in a little side entrance, white folks going to this beautiful entrance, and in a half-moon-sized shape cut in the wall near the toilet where the stench of urine is coming from the toilet, I had to order my hamburger. And everybody accepted it. I took the damn hamburger, threw it in the trash, and walked out, prayed to God to destroy this country. And America may know, may be great. Damn it, when you deny humanity to another people, you ain't great. You're an animal, and you deserve destruction for your evil. Hear me now, that's my feeling. I ain't never loved you. Never. Because I felt the pain from a baby of suffering black people, and I didn't know how in the hell you could claim to be godly and see people suffering like this and inflict it on. I couldn't understand it, but I wasn't willing to accept Elijah Muhammad's definition of it. So one day I was playing in a nightclub in Chicago called the Blue Angel, singing my calypsos. Time for Muslim convention. A friend of mine said, Elijah Muhammad is speaking. Would you like to come and hear him? I was ready. I said, yeah, I'll come right now. Yeah, where is he? I went on down to the Temple Brothers and Sisters, and that thing took me up. Searched me out. I ain't never been in no place where people raise my hand, put it in my pocket and everything. I said, look, man, how you doing, baby? You know how we are in show business. I had my little do on. Went in this line. Hey, baby, what's happening? What's going on? Took my wife and put her in another room. I couldn't understand that. Took me and put me in the balcony with the rest of the Muslims. They were the strangest looking people in the world. I met people, saw people that I knew, grew up with, and I was waving at them across the aisle. Hey! They were looking at me, that stone expression. All of a sudden I heard somebody say, it's hot! Everybody stood up, the messenger of Allah! I heard his little feet. And then Elijah Muhammad got up on the speaker stand and said, Assalamu alaikum. And if you ever listen to him speak, you really had to love to hear what he had to say in order to listen to what he had to say. But he said, in the name of Allah, the most merciful, to whom all holy praises is due. Now, I grew up in Boston, a student in English. And when I heard this man say, to whom all holy praises is due, instead of our do. I said, oh, hell, this man can't even talk. Malcolm was on the rostrum with him. And the Honorable Elijah Muhammad looked right up in my face. Said, brother, I didn't get a chance to go to the schools as you did. He said, when I got there, the door was closed. He said, but brother, don't you pay no attention to how I'm saying it. Pay attention to what I'm saying. And then you take it and put it in that fine language that you know. I'm scared to death now. I know what I was thinking about. And I eased back out. He was still looking up at me. I part heard what he said. I part understood. I didn't fully understand, but I knew and felt his sincerity, and so I got up to accept and become a Muslim. I went on back to New York, and I went to Temple number 7, where Malcolm X was teaching. I ain't never heard a man teach like that in my life. Malcolm just seemed to crystallize it for me. And when I heard him, Malcolm was a magnificent teacher. He had a way of understanding how people's minds worked and to build up his subject matter and weave it around the condition of your mind and lead you gently to the point and then nail you on that point until you were convinced. He was so marvelous a teacher that naturally I came in the mosque under him and became a student under him. I grew to love Minister Malcolm X. I walked with him where he walked, went with him where he taught, and began to share the experience of his growth in the nation of Islam. Malcolm was by far the greatest minister that the messenger ever had, far beyond the realm of most men's minds. Malcolm had a unique, uncanny ability not only to see a thing, but to see into a thing, then be able to relate other things to that thing. As we began to grow, jealousy arose in the ranks for Malcolm. Now, brothers and sisters, you have never been hurt until you've been hurt by the jealousy of your own brothers and sisters whom you are struggling for. There is no one of us who came through the 60s who got into any kind of leadership position who didn't have to carry the burden of someone's jealousy or envy of us. And it's a hell of a burden to struggle with. It's one thing to struggle against an external enemy, but you have never been in a struggle until you struggle against an enemy within your own ranks that says he believes like you believe. Malcolm began to feel this kind of internal enmity and jealousy arising for him, especially among the leadership. You mean Mr. Muhammad? No, I don't. I mean Malcolm's peers, although he didn't have any peers. We would sit together for hours and discuss that which Malcolm was going through. It seemed like Lewis was always the one that he could talk to because I never offered Malcolm no resistance. I was a willing student of Malcolm. I loved him, admired him, all but worshiped him, and was willing to give my life for him because of his value to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and his value ultimately to the struggle of black people. This is not just words, this is real. But there would come a time that as Malcolm began to evolve and to grow, this jealousy would intensify among the ministry and the laboring staff at headquarters in Chicago. So much so that the work that Malcolm did for the good of the nation, his motives began to be suspect. I've never seen a man more tireless in his devotion, in my judgment. I've never seen a man work as hard as Malcolm worked. But these are things that I want you to understand about Malcolm. Number one, Malcolm was a realist. Number two, Malcolm did not believe in no mystery God that was going to drop something down out of the sky for Malcolm or for anybody else. Malcolm believed that we had to be prepared in order to do anything. He believed in preparation. He believed in study. He believed in execution. Malcolm was morally meticulous. Now, these are things that you should know about the man you admire. Malcolm did not smoke. So don't claim Malcolm and be puffing yourself to death. Malcolm was no reefer smoker. He was supremely well disciplined. I never saw Malcolm so much as chew gum or pop a piece of candy in his mouth between meals. Malcolm ate one meal a day, to the best of my knowledge, for the 12 years that he was in Islam, and for the 9 years that I knew him, I never saw him break that code.
To come and get me at 5 o'clock in the morning, and prepare. And we would pray together.
Now, why talk about Malcolm and not talk about Malcolm as a religious person? Unless you want to say that Malcolm had no religious conviction at all. That religion didn't play a part in shaping Malcolm's development. Don't do that. Don't rob him of his commitment to a God. But Malcolm had a real view of God. He didn't believe that you should sit around and pray to God and then sit on your backside and do nothing. No. He believed in no mystery God. He believed in what the Holy Quran teaches, that Allah will never change the condition of a people until they change it themselves. So he knew that prayer wouldn't get it alone. A man had to pray, but then he had to get up and work to make his own prayer reality. Malcolm didn't chase women. Now listen to me, brother. To the best of my knowledge, and I can't say that I know all, but to the best of my knowledge, I never saw Malcolm show any sign, even in looking at women, in a way where he would make a little hint to them that catch me around the stage door in the back, in the dark, after I finish. Women adored Malcolm. And the reason they adored Malcolm is because they couldn't have him. Ain't that something? Let's run that back. Play that back again. Now remember, this is my perspective. I have never seen a woman that met Malcolm that he didn't make either hate him or love him. And most of them that said they hated him really loved him, because in him they met for the first time a man. And the problem of black women all over America is the need for a man. A real, live man. Look, brother and sister, I watch our women in church. When Jesus' name is mentioned, you see the clamor arise from our women. When the Reverend just mentions his name, you hear them do this. Hallelujah. I said, what is this you're going through, sister? What's going on, sister? What's happening in your mind, sister? I know what it is. When Reverend said, Jesus is the rock. Jesus is the answer. Jesus is the Savior. And you know how much hell you catching in your daily life. You need a Jesus in your life, all right? So when his name is mentioned, you just go up. Whoa. Well, when Malcolm came along, you didn't have to call on Jesus no more. Because somebody that looked like Jesus appeared in a palpable form that you could touch. And he made demands on men and women. He could walk into a room and immediately his presence would bring order to that room. Yes, it was. But what we don't want to see is that behind this man, there was a teacher. Now, brother and sister, that's where we, in a sense, fall off the law. Because now the teacher of Malcolm is looked at as an immoral man, and a vile man, and a filthy man. And Malcolm, in many respects, looked like he's more disciplined, more principled than his teacher. All right? Now, if you will bear with me till 4 o'clock, I think I can finish it by 4. Now, brother and sister, as the jealousy against Malcolm arose, honest to God, Malcolm struggled to keep his leader out front. I watched him. As rumors began to spread that Elijah Muhammad was involved in some illicit affairs, and Malcolm heard this, and he still was trying to defend his teacher, Malcolm came under increasing burden to continue to defend his teacher. Malcolm began to believe that Elijah Muhammad himself was jealous of Malcolm. Now, we got to deal with it. Because when Malcolm made accomplishments, he would pick up the Muhammad Speaks newspaper, and the Times would have it in, the Washington Post would have it in there, but Muhammad Speaks wouldn't have it in there. He was a Muslim first. He was working for the nation. Why would the nation not print what Malcolm was doing of value for the nation? This hurt Malcolm. He was very, very hurt. Malcolm wasn't popping off at John Fitzgerald Kennedy on his own. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad had pointed out the deceitfulness of Kennedy to Malcolm. And in all Malcolm's speeches, he was calling John Kennedy John the Fox. Go back and read in 1963 when the boys were getting ready for the March on Washington. Malcolm is the only one that saw the trickery and the chicanery of the government of America, how it maneuvered the civil rights movement. And Malcolm spoke out against it forcefully in 1963. Toward the end of 63, after the March on Washington, Malcolm is coming under increasing internal pressure in the nation. I don't know what he's undergoing. All I know is he's under tremendous pressure. You could see it in his face. You could hear it in his voice as I traveled with him on the college campuses. He was beginning to lose his grip. And as Malcolm would lash white people, I mean, I've seen him lash white people to such a degree in a white institution that whites come right on up out of the audience to attack Malcolm. He had seemed to lose a balance and a perspective because somehow whatever turmoil was going on inside his mind in 63 was now beginning to manifest itself in certain moves that he had begun to make. Now, what we've got to understand is this. Malcolm was brilliant. Malcolm was wise. Malcolm was articulate. Malcolm was on the case. Malcolm pointed out the evil of white America. Yes, this is all true. But while Malcolm was doing that, what was the enemy doing? You see that camera back there? That camera has been on me ever since I started. There are people in here taking notes. Not necessarily for term papers. I don't know who the hell they're working for. But when Malcolm would appear, I would always be with him when he appeared on the East Coast. When he was at Harvard, there Malcolm was talking, but there were people in the audience always standing back upstairs. When the people would get a rise out of what Malcolm said, they would jot down the thing that Malcolm got a rise out of him on the point that he made. They would take those kind of films. They would put Malcolm on television in New York, and then he would fly to California, sometimes tired, no sleep, and they would question him again. But the newscaster was not questioning them on their own. It was the United States government behind feeding this one a question for him, feeding that one a question for him. Then when it was all over, pull the film into a room and sit down body language experts, voice stress analysts, psychiatrists and psychologists to study Malcolm and sit still, because you're not dealing with no little lightweight faggot when you deal with the white man. You're dealing with a scientist of evil, brother. Right? You're not dealing with nobody that you can just jump up and handle with your damn foolishness. You're dealing with a man that rules the world, and he intends to keep on ruling it. You can't come up with no damn backroom philosophy, right? And strip the white man out of power. You're out of your damn mind. This white man's bringing you into these damn colleges. These ain't nothing but experimental playpens for him, not for you, damn it. Say, come on, let me hear you. I'm going to give you tenure. I'm going to make you a professor. For what? I want to see what's in your mind, damn it. I want to give you the freedom to explore your mind. So if I can take the elements of your brain and stop others from seeing it the way you see it, then I can stop you. California's famous for that. Bring these great black minds out here to Stanford. All of the socialists, the Marxist-Leninists, come on. Let me hear what you got on your mind. And if you talk your theories, they be taping you, listening to you, having your students report on you, then they go back. What do you think about that? You said something we got to deal with. The niggas are getting to listen to it. You think you're dealing with a lightweight? If you underestimate your enemy, you're dead before you begin. Brothers and sisters, as they began to sift Malcolm, they saw that Malcolm believed in Honorable Elijah Muhammad, but like all of us, there was some area of doubt. And the area of doubt in Malcolm was that his teacher was jealous of him and that his teacher was an immoral man. Once those areas of doubt arose, and Malcolm made the statement that it was a case of the chickens coming home to roost, and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad punished him for making that statement, then Malcolm knew that he couldn't continue inside the nation, or believed he couldn't. The internal jealousies were tremendous, and feeling that the very leader that you gave your all completely to had betrayed you, he had to leave. So he made his exit. And when Malcolm made his exit, all of us inside the nation began attacking Malcolm. I was one of them. Malcolm was put in
neutral position. And he responded as he would because that's his nature. Now the FBI files can come out and say how they engineered it. But you don't ever read them damn files. How they engineered and maneuvered the climate. Say yes, there may be a case where we got the wrong Muslims for killing Malcolm. They admit and they knew it in 1964 that they had the wrong, or 1966 probably, that they didn't have the ones that killed Malcolm. But what the hell did they care? They don't care right now. For most black brothers, they don't need no witness. All they need is an excuse. And they wanted to cement the case that Muslims killed Malcolm so that those who loved Malcolm and those who loved Elijah Muhammad would clash with each other and eliminate each other. Then white folks would be able to go on the street. They would have the true baddest men that they feared, Elijah and his turn to Malcolm out of the way. So when the controversy was going back and forth, when Malcolm raised the question of Elijah Muhammad's morality, this inflamed every Muslim who was a follower of Mr. Muhammad. I mean, do you understand what it's like to believe in a man? Because you ain't never had that kind of commitment to none of this. You ain't had that kind of commitment to God. You haven't had a leader that you walk behind with that kind of commitment. Many people don't even understand what it was in Mr. Muhammad that could get the commitment of a man like Malcolm so totally. Malcolm would deny his own life for his teacher. And ain't no ordinary man that bought that kind of commitment, brother and sister. That's an extraordinary man that you've got to come to grips with. When Malcolm felt that his teacher betrayed him, the anger in him, the hurt in him, the pain in him, he lashed out. And in lashing out, even though the Muslims were lashing out at Malcolm, it created the time. I mean, the time was ready. The incendiary time was there. Now the dirty FBI and CIA, they hide their hands in the whole matter. Don't you know that the scripture says there are 2 or 3 gathered together in my name? There I am also in the midst of you. That's for God and Jesus, and that's for the FBI too. You don't make no damn plans that white folks don't know nothing about. Every damn thing you plan, you get on the phone. Hey, bro, I got something in mind. Come on over. When you meet, he's meeting with you. He got all kinds of ways, not only of monitoring Russia, monitoring China, monitoring Vietnam. Don't you know he can monitor countries thousands of miles away? Niggas ain't no problem. Is it an accident, brother, that Malcolm was threatening people? Up until the day that Malcolm was assassinated, Malcolm was having everybody that came into the ballroom to hear him in all the church. They knew there was a threat on Malcolm's life, but no uniformed policemen were present. Is that an accident? No policemen were in the ballroom? Come on. And dudes just walked in with shotguns under their clothes? No, it didn't happen like that, brother. There's a hidden agent that exploited an incendiary condition. And even though I believe that certain Muslims were responsible for the assassination of Malcolm X, I do not believe it could have gone on without the complicity of the United States government in the way that they knew it and permitted it to happen. And let me tell you something. If you are a policeman and you suspect that a crime is about to be committed and you have full knowledge of it, it is your duty as an officer of the law to stop the crime and punish the intended criminal for the intent to commit the crime. But if you hear that a crime is going to be committed and you aid that crime in being committed, God. And the last words that I spoke to Malcolm as I leave you, brothers and sisters, he said to me in his trial on 23/11/97, and he said, I'm right New York. He said, Brother Lewis, my name is on a one-day deal. And he said, I wish it was you being an example for me rather than me being an example for you. When Malcolm left the nation, Malcolm needed time to get to himself, to think, to reflect. Because when your whole mind revolves around a man and the teaching of that man, and you lose confidence in that man, then his teaching lose value to you, and you don't need to be out talking because you're confused. You need to get back, withdraw, review the situation, gather yourself to emerge again. Malcolm didn't have no time to do that. And that's why every week in the last year of his life, he seemed to be changing his philosophy from week to week or from month to month. It was not that Malcolm was not a man that knew that change was necessary, but it was because he was steering the public while he was formulating new ideas and ways, and he should have been out of the public, getting himself together and in truth. Now, why are you talking like this, Brother Farrakhan? Because this little brother, unknowing that Malcolm was actually prophetic in what he was saying, lived to walk right up in Malcolm's feet. I also became national spokesman for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. Frightening thing that as I became Mr. Muhammad's national spokesman, drew closer to the messenger. I became to him as Malcolm was to him a spokesman and an articulator of his ideas. God knows he gave me a lucid tongue, but Elijah Muhammad fueled that tongue with knowledge. Malcolm groomed me, yes he did, but now there I was alone. My 9-year companion and friend gone, dead. And here I was, out there in a strange world, speaking for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And slowly but surely, people begin to admire Brother Farrakhan. Admire what? His brilliant speech, his ability to articulate ideas, but not my ideas, his ideas. But look at the messenger. Recognizing he's getting older, recognizing his time among us was running short, what does a wise man do? He prepares his students for the eventuality of life. Look, brother, don't you go to the dojo? You know when you go to the dojo and don't go to the great way, go to the martial arts. Nobody play with you when you get ready to throw you down. Oh, man, they throw you. Man, you got hit. That's pain. Why must you experience pain now? Because when I'm no longer there and the real thing come along, you've got to be ready. I can't just get you from pain and make you into something. I didn't know. You know, I was in the field. Candy was better. I would come here to Los Angeles, San Francisco, in this temple that I spoke for. The whispering was going on. He was going to be in my mind. I in the house where I gave 18 hours a day. My family, my father, commit myself to a man and a message. Which did I know that in my own Muslim family there was a seed of that kind of envy and jealousy working to destroy Brother Farrakhan. I would come to the table of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And at one time he would say to me things that would lift me up. And at another time he would say things to me that would have me going home and driving by the waterfront, crying, wondering why he say that, why he do that. I didn't understand. But I came to know something, brothers and sisters, because I too began to believe that Elijah Muhammad was wrong. And listen, I'm confessing a thought. I'm confessing a thing that came up in my mind that I was beat out because I didn't want to entertain those kind of thoughts about my leader and teacher, because once you begin to think that your leader is jealous of you, can't serve him no more. You understand? Now look, brothers and sisters, when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad departs from us, his son comes into power. I know what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad has said to me. But in his departure, I feel totally lost. Wallace Muhammad says, I know the way. I said, go ahead, brother. I'll back you up. As God is my witness, no envy, not jealousy, but recognizing that leadership is a responsibility, and you can't play games with people's lives over vanity of being called a leader. If I didn't feel that I knew where the next step was, why should I try to fight for a seat that I didn't feel qualified to sit in? So when Wallace C. Muhammad said he knew the way, I said, go on, brother, and take it, and I'll back you up as long as you with your father. I'm trying to defend a policy that I just ain't comfortable with. Now I'm beginning to feel this thing that Malcolm felt. Everywhere I went, people looking at me as an enemy, trailing behind me in the Caribbean and South America. I mean, actually lying on me and my motives. Hear me now. But before the messenger left, this is a very key point. Please, please, if you don't hear nothing else, I want you to hear this key point. After I had taken all of the envy and jealousy of the laborers of Mr. Muhammad that I could, I decided he was going to have a showdown at high noon in Mr. Muhammad's house, and I was going to get to the bottom of this. If we had to fight, we'd go down. I get to Mr. Muhammad's table and take it. I got to Mr. Muhammad's table, and when I brought up this envy and this jealousy and was getting into the fight, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad hit the table with his hands and said, brother, seek refuge in Allah from the envier when he envied him. Got up and he walked out. And when he walked out of the room, he broke my face. Because I was ready to fight. He wasn't there. He killed the fight. I couldn't understand. Then he comes back in 5 minutes later and he sits at the table and says, now, brother, he said, when you're getting ready to use a piece of wood to hold up the corner of a building, you have to put stress on it. And if it cracks under the stress, you know that's not the piece of board you were looking for, and you throw it away, and you get another. He never said another word. I don't think I understood it until 9 months ago. This is the kind of man that Elijah Muhammad was and is. He drops things in your brain that have time capsules. 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, it opens up a whole new avenue for you. The man was and is a master teacher. It was my thinking that he was jealous of me, listen to me good now, that made me stumble. And I slipped. And I fell. And when Wallace Muhammad, now I'm telling you what I'm beginning to understand about Malcolm's mind. When Wallace Muhammad began attacking his father, this meant that if his father wasn't any good, all the body of knowledge that he taught us, we had nothing in it to look to, so this rendered us confused, immobile, unable to function. Until we got a grip on something that we could hold on to, we were finished. And that's what happened to Malcolm. Malcolm needed to withdraw and get a grip on his mind. He didn't have that chance. And the messenger kept warning me. He said, brother, remember Malcolm. And don't go the way of Malcolm, brother. And all that Malcolm wanted, brother, will come to you. I didn't know what he meant. Now, 4 years after Mr. Muhammad's departure, I understand it by the grace of God. And I shall explain why all this jealousy, why was it directed to Malcolm? Why did Elijah Muhammad seem to direct it to Malcolm? You know why, brothers and sisters? Because if Elijah Muhammad knew that his time among us was limited, somebody had to be prepared to carry on his work. The hadith of Prophet Muhammad says, the three most envied men is a rich man who gives away his wealth to the poor, a wise man who teaches knowledge to the ignorant, and the man to whom the Holy Quran is revealed. Malcolm should never have run from envy. Malcolm ultimately had to face envy and jealousy, because if you are going to be a leader, your people are not always going to understand where you're going. Some of them are going to hate you. Some of them are going to scorn you. Some of them are going to speak evil of you. But you've got to be able to take it all and hold your course and be steady as you are, and never become vindictive against the people that are against you, because you know they don't understand. But if you understand, then you've got to hold your course. And what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was doing, as I later learned, was directing that to Malcolm and watching to see how Malcolm handled it. It may seem cruel. It grieves me to know that it broke a man and led to that man's death. But I'm here today because Malcolm died, that I might live. Hear me now, brother. That man was a friend to me. He was a brother to me. He has never told me anything other than right. And the last words he said is, I wish it was you being an example for me rather than me being an example for you. So when the time came that I could no longer agree with Wallace D. Muhammad, I had an example to go by. I quietly withdrew. My brothers in the world community attacked me viciously, and still do to this very day. They try to read my motives. Farrakhan just in this for money. You a damn fool. I'm not no little foolish, lightweight fella. I got talent. I don't need to be playing this kind of foolishness to be a man to get money from you. Hell no. All that a man have will he give for his life. I don't need to be out here saying these kind of things, angering the United States government, the Arabs, you and everybody else, for a damn dollar that I may not live to spend. It ain't money that I want. I want to see the unity of the black man. And I recognize Elijah Muhammad was no wicked man. Yes, Muhammad did have wives, not little teenage secretaries. That's slander.
And that was unworthy of Malcolm. That kind of use of words was unworthy of Malcolm. You can't go in no African society and condemn an African leader because he's got more than one wife. They laugh at you, brother. Why did Elijah Muhammad have more than one wife? Because ultimately and eventually, when the liberation struggle comes down, the ranks of the black male is going to be decimated, leaving a lot of women around here with no men. And a man had to show us how to take more than one wife and be honorable to them all. Elijah, listen good, damn it. I want to defend the righteous man. Elijah Muhammad wasn't no man running around here because he was after some damn woman. With all the birth control pills and abortion clinics, what the hell would he look like fathering 13 children? The man got more sense than that. You don't find President Kennedy's babies popping up everywhere. You don't find Eisenhower's crap everywhere. Those men may have had carnal desires, but they never produced children, did they? Elijah Muhammad could have said to a sister, there's an abortion clinic around the corner if you're pregnant. Have the baby. Put them in home. Take care of them. Educate the children. But why didn't he let it be known? That's his domestic life. And at a certain point in your development, you would grow to be able to handle his domestic life without looking upon him as a low-down, filthy, immoral man. How could he be low-down and filthy and at the same time inspire righteous conduct in us, in Malcolm, and all of those of us who believed in him? He wasn't no low-down man. God damn it, and I defy the whole world. I'll stand against the whole damn world for that man and what that man taught and what that man was and what that man is. He wasn't jealous of Malcolm. When a man knows himself, he don't have to be jealous and envious of his students, but he wanted to make Malcolm that object, that real leader. Because you can't be no leader of black people and not have your own people hate you. Go ahead, Mr. Abu Bakari. He's the head of the Republic of New Africa. What? Your own people. That's where the trouble comes from. Brother, you don't have to remember. You right, so you don't have to do it to us anymore. We just do experts doing it to each other. And if we're going to let our own evil to one another take us off the course, we'll never be good. I have suffered that kind of thing. And I'm still suffering. If you don't read in the press, Farrakhan attacked Wallace D. Muhammad. I refuse to let the press interview you. Who taught you that, Brother Farrakhan? Malcolm did. Why won't you come out and attack the Muslims since they're attacking you? Because Malcolm said he was an example for me. And I know Whitey's sitting behind the door waiting for me to create the climate. It's already there. All I got to do is start playing into it. And then brother will kill brother. For what? It ain't worth it. So when white folks say, Brother Farrakhan, we'd like to interview you for People magazine, I say, go see other people. New York Times called me twice. We want to feature you in a story. Oh, hell. I know there was a time when I would give one of my teeth in the front to get a featured story in the New York Times. I told the cat from the Times, excuse the expression, I said, I will not be taking any interviews for 2 or 3 years. You may come back and see me then. Chicago Tribune said, Mr. Farrakhan, we just talked to Wallace, and they say over there that you're in this for money. What do you say? I say that they can say what they please. Thank you. When Imam Wallace D. Muhammad printed in the Bilalian News an appeal to Farrakhan, one of the Bilalian News reporters came to me and said, "What is your answer to the Imam's appeal?" I said, "I have his telephone number. And whenever I get ready to answer him, I will call him directly. I will not speak to him through you or through any other medium." They're trying to make the problem between me and W.D. Muhammad. It's not a problem between me and W.D. Muhammad. The problem is between W.D. Muhammad and his father. I choose to follow his father. I believe in the correctness of his father's position. And I hope to prove to all that the Islam that his father taught is broad enough to include all that Malcolm envisioned. Yes, it is. It's broad enough to embrace nationalism, and yet not narrow enough to exclude the universality of its truth. I will prove that the Nation of Islam, as conceived and taught by the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, is not some lightweight, limited thing, but it has the capacity within it to embrace us in our development. But I leave that not to talk it, but one day soon we shall demonstrate. And therefore I refuse the media, because I don't think in reality we need the media. I don't think that we need to go in front of the television talking about strategies for black liberation. There's no white general that talks his strategy in front of his enemy. And we don't know who our friends are until they're tried and tested and brought through the fire. So whatever thoughts you have for the liberation of our people, you have to store them away. And what you say publicly or even privately, don't be afraid to go back out and say it publicly again, because you're going to hear it again. So as I leave you, brothers and sisters, I thank you for your indulgence. I think that my experience enables me to build a bridge between Malcolm and the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I think my experience shows me that we have got to be able to get around the stumbling blocks of our personality and search for truths that will live longer than our persons or our personality. I bear witness as I leave you that the struggle will intensify. I bear witness as I leave you, brothers and sisters, that America is not going to get better for the black man. She's going to get exceedingly worse. I want to warn you, brothers and sisters, that as America is shut down more and more by the international ramifications of this which is called inflation, as white people begin to suffer more and more and have to revise their standard of living downward, they're going to take off the mask of civility, and a naked beast will be staring us in our faces. Oh, beloved black brother and sister, there is nowhere to run. We're going to have to dig in and remember that if we're going to stop fighting each other, we only weaken ourselves for the ultimate challenge that we will eventually face in the age. So my brothers and my sisters, I want you to know that I am not an exclusivist as a follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I am an inclusivist, meaning that I want to and desire to and will, by the help of Allah, work with all of my brothers and sisters who are in this struggle for the liberation of black people. I will do whatever I can in whatever way we can to aid you in your development. For I don't see us as many ideas. I see us now coming to grow into the respect of each other and each other's ideas for liberation. Sister Abu Bakari, I agree that unless and until reparations is brought before the world, We don't have nothing. Affirmative action is not what we want, unless it's the affirmative action of understanding that 400 years of sojourn in America demands something, and we did not give up our inheritance or our heritage in Africa. We owe, something is owed to us from both sides of this coin, and we intend to collect on both sides. Here it is now. I want my nationalist brothers to understand this. We must be nationalists. We got to think in terms of a nation and all that goes for a nation. We have to understand that until and unless we have land that is our own, we cannot build any sound sovereign nation. We've got to have some of it. You say, well, how are you going to get it? The how, we will discuss. The why, we can say we need land. And we're going to have it. Or everybody will be deprived of the right to live on their land. Because ain't none of you had no damn land until we gave it to you. That is why the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in the land which the Lord thy God giveth you. And we gave you. You did not give it to yourself. And we sent you into that which you call Asia. And we chose the best part for ourselves ever since it was made. That which you call Africa. And that chosen piece of real estate called the Middle East. We know when you got there and the circumstances under which you got there, and we know how long you got to remain there too. Because that land, nobody's going to claim but the righteous. And you're not going to claim the Holy Land if you're not going to live according to God's laws. And I'm here to tell you there'll be a change of powers in the Middle East. You're not going to hold on to those sacred houses of Allah in unrighteousness. The Saudi government is unworthy to maintain power over the holy shrines. And all got to pay today. Ain't nobody getting away. You won't hold on to Jerusalem either. You won't hold on in Africa. And you better try to hold on to the little piece that we gave you that is yours. So I thank you for listening. And I pray, Allah, that you understand. You just keep your eyes open. And you're going to see things happen in America and speed up the cadence. You see those floods in Mississippi? And in Alabama? And in Louisiana? And up in Illinois? You haven't seen nothing yet. You out here in California? You keep looking. This is a wicked hellhole, this California. Wicked hellhole, boy. If Sodom and Gomorrah couldn't make it, I don't know how in the hell you think you can. I mean, brother, there was a time when we wouldn't even tolerate this. You remember? There was a time when if you was a sister, you had to hide there. And when you walked out among us, you had to act like a real man and put a piano on your back. But today, faggots, come on out the closet. Poor sisters trying to be men. Don't you know we got to straighten our thing up? So that means you don't talk no liberation for black people with no cocaine sniffing. Your nose is so messed up, they got to take you in the hospital and cauterize your nose. You looking for black liberation and snort. Soon as this thing is over, you're going to be high, some of you. And right down there doing the free. Get down. Come on, baby, get down. You know, for people that's intelligent, you know, we let this white man take a damn fool out of it. You know that?
We need to get up, don't you think? Right. So stop letting them program you to get down. Don't be out here doing the freak. But all the time you get into that dance, say freak, freaky deaky. You know what you suggesting to yourself? You keep suggesting to yourself freakish behavior. And then you begin to tolerate that kind of freakishness that does not lead to nation building. It destroys a nation. Ask America. Ask Rome. Ask Southern. You can't build up on that. Leave the white man's woman alone. I know you don't like that because you're a humanist. You disavow racism. Some of you have used Marxist-Leninism as an excuse to hide your integrationist ideas. You ain't nothing but a damn glorified integrationist hiding under Marx. How in the hell can you be a Marxist learning theory and no place to practice it? You can't practice Marxism or that kind of economics in America. You got to find a way to practice your theory in order to refine your theory. Come on, brother and sister. Let's not hide behind things. Let's open it up and see what's really inside. Say, put that white woman down. Put her down and tell her, look, baby, I understand why you're coming here. I understand. But you going back, because you look so nice with your white collar. I mean, just look natural together. That's where you belong. Give me my black nappy head. That's what I want. And I'm telling you, goddamn it, you stay away from what is mine. And I'm telling you, sister, we're coming for you. Every one of you, we're coming for you. You're not going to get away with this madness. We're coming for you. And brother, we're coming for you too. You're going to get your things? Yeah. Ain't going to be no stealing. Ain't going to be no dope selling. Ain't going to be no pimping a black woman, hustling black women. That game is over. We're either going to clean up or we'll be out of it. Totally. It's got to come that way. Maulana Ron Karenga said, I don't think I'm quoting, so I better paraphrase. And in order to be a revolutionary and to be really free, you have to be willing to die for what you believe. Right. But you also have to be willing to take life. You know, when you love yourself and your people enough, there will be a time for teaching and a time for warning and a time for accountability. I want to be accountable to God, but I want to be accountable to you. If I'm going to be in front of people, I want you to know that I'm not ripping you off. And if I'm ripping you off, I need to be done. As an example to everyone else that would rip off his people. See what happened to Farrakhan? That's what happened to you. And until your politicians and your leaders and your teachers know that they got to be accountable for what they say and what they do in the dark, then we'll continue to be people. But when you put your politician in Washington and he make a funny deal and come back and be required of it, then what happened to Congressman Thornton? You know what? He didn't show up for Congress too. Where is he? We don't know. Then the next one that gets voted in, whatever you want me to say in Washington, it'll be your representative elect. We've got to be accountable to you. And you've got to be accountable for your actions. You believe it?
That's right.
You believe it? What do you think? You think Ayatollah Khomeini is wrong?
No, sir.
You think the afterlife is wrong? If a dude is stealing and whatnot and cut off his hand, you think that's wrong? No, sir. How many hands do you think we can chop off in America? Don't you think stealing will stop? Quick, brother. Oh, yeah, see if a dude walk down the street like that and off the ground. It'll be all over. Your property fee or where's the law goes on? Well, that's what the law that's in the East, and a law similar to that is in African society. And there'll be a law similar to that right here in good old black America. That's right. And don't you know, when white America sees that we are not playing with ourselves, everybody will walk among us with more respect. That's right. You hear me? When we pull ourselves together, white people will automatically straighten up. When they come in your midst, they won't play around with your home. Won't be no pinching and winking and going on. They'll respect her as we respect her. And now, if they got stores in our community, they will not be selling hog and whiskey and everything else in our community while they claim to be Muslims. That's going to get you for that. Right. I'm telling you in advance, we're going to get you for that. Right. That's right. We're not going to play that crap over here, but you wouldn't do it over there. That's right. Show you really not a follower of Prophet Muhammad. Right. That's why God had to give us somebody, because he's not fit to carry the Prophet Muhammad. That's right. I just want to lay that on him. I guess that's how they're going to have a. We're going to have a question period, or? Yes, sir. Oh, no, I get some water. And then we'll
I'm going to take about 3 questions.
We'll take 3 questions, brothers and sisters, if there is any, or are any. Are there any questions? 3? Are there any questions? Dr. Karenga, you have a question? I'm glad to see you, beloved brother. Ask one of our brilliant theoreticians. Right there, brothers and sisters. And I say that because Brother Farrakhan admires him. And I hope that in the future, that we will learn to respect those that are among us that work for us while they are among us. I see Dr. Karenga's work all over America. All over America. Everywhere I go in the nationalist community, I see his work. And I have to respect and honor that work and honor the man that produced that work. This development, we're not going to be about cutting each other's throat. That day is all over. We're going to be about helping each other to get where all of us want to go. I see two questions, brother and brother. I saw brother's hand first, all right? Yes, brother. His question is it worth our time going to the universities in America? Yes, sir, it is. Why is it worth our time? America has some very fantastic universities and very great knowledge that is given out. If you have no knowledge of yourself coming into these universities, then they socialize you and program you into a useful tool for their service. But if you've got the knowledge of yourself, you can come into these universities and extract out of them what we need as a people to go on into liberation. Yes, there's a lot that these universities have to offer, so don't say, I ain't going to no white universities. It would be fine if we had universities of our own, and I'm sure we will. But until that happens, come and get whatever you can out of these universities, then use it for the advancement of yourself, your people, all over the world, and then the rest of humanity. But first, get the knowledge and use it for yourself and your people in America, then your people abroad, then the world. Yes, brother. Most free independent countries are sending their nationals here to study. They don't come here to learn Western ideas and philosophy, but the Western man makes sure that he puts his ideas and philosophy in you before you go back to your country, so that he has an in that country through the students that have been taught here.
But Nkrumah studied here. And he got something. So, brother, yes, apply yourself, please. That's how you're going to make it. Apply yourself to study. But the main ingredient of study is the knowledge of self. Thank you. Yes, sir, brother. Oh, brother. Well, it's been a very long time just to get us to recognize the little that we do recognize about our need for a nation. I imagine that it will be quicker to build a nation the more we see that we can rely less on white America. Listen to me carefully. As the riches of America diminishes, our desire to rely on ourselves will increase. And the more our desire for self-reliance increases, the faster will be our pace in building a nation. And it won't be as long as it has been. It certainly won't take 400 years. It will not take no 400 years. But we'll get it started, and our children will carry it on. Yes, brother.
The impact of roots, the next, the first series and the second one. What impact do you think it had on the minds of black people in this country? And to what extent has it affected their thinking as far as an African people?
Thank you. I think Roots has had some positive effects, but also some negative effects. Television as a medium is geared more for entertainment than actual history. And I think we can agree that the television docudramas of King and Roots went very much away from the book Roots and went very much away from the actual life of Dr. King. They have to make real life entertainment. So in this, there's always an entertainment value, and then there's always the subtle seeds of the script writers and those producers who have another motive other than what Alex Haley had in mind. Now, Alex Haley was not in complete control of how Roots came out, and he will admit this. When Alex Haley wrote for Reader's Digest, he interviewed Mr. Muhammad and he interviewed Malcolm. Malcolm was the first one that told Alex Haley that some of our forebears who came to the United States or were brought to the United States were Muslims. When Alex did his research, he sent word to me. I got a letter from him saying that what Malcolm had told him he had found to be true. But the way Roots depicted the village, it was a false picture. But I saw my children watch Roots, and I saw the pain in their face as they saw what black people went under, and Roots was very light in what it portrayed. And I mean, my youngster, 5 years old, 6 years old, he looked at that thing and the tears rolled down his cheek. He said, "Daddy, were we treated like that?" I said, "Oh, son, much worse than that." I mean, it impacted in that way, all right? But then if you watch Roots 1, later on it got to the scene where the boy was angry and the white girl was talking to him, then the seed dropped. Very fertile seed. Well, if you're against white people, you're against me. And she laid it on the little boy, and he smiled, and they embraced. Those kind of things sink deep into our people. It had positive and negative effects. Roots 2, brother, by that time you could see the degeneration of things. Because not only did Roots 2 have less impact than Roots 1 in a positive sense. But coming right up to the Malcolm scene, the way they portrayed Malcolm and the way they laid on that scene of Malcolm's assassination and the way they portrayed Muslims, they had another thought in mind. I'm looking at it from that kind of personal viewpoint. And then to have Alex Haley do a commercial for the United States Army. That show you, brother. Things are pretty rough. And even when they display our roots, they control the content. But if you contrast that with Holocaust and the Jewish telling of their story, they made sure that when you left that movie or that televiewing, you had a compassionate heart for Jewish suffering. That was not the case with Roots. It polarized both people. I mean, black folks the next day were hot as hell at that first showing of Roots. But the last showing, I didn't feel that kind of spirit. It was like, well, we in now. We in now. I think that we have to ultimately move, brothers and sisters, to write our own histories, as we have great black historians that are doing it. Sheikh Anta Diop, Dr. Chancellor Williams, Dr. Ben Dockman. Our own historians must be honored, revered, and cherished by us. And then we must develop the type of television expertise to put together documentaries that tell our story the way our story needs to be told. Now to you, my dear brother, as an African, and we as Africans transplanted in America, if I may use those words, we need to strengthen our ties. And we need to do everything in our power to break up the poison that is being spread between us and our African brothers. Every campus that I've gone on to where they have African students and the BSU or the Black Student Union, they have no rapport. It is worse now than it ever was in the 60s and even in the 50s. We need each other. And we have got to see the full dimensions of our struggle. That Africa is important to our struggle. But as Maulana Ron Karenga said, and I agree, that until we free ourselves here first, we can't be qualified to help our brothers in Africa or anywhere else. That is true. But do you realize what we have among ourselves? We've got the technical expertise in every field of endeavor to lift our people all over the world if we brought our knowledge home and used it for self. That's why this thing here, brothers, this is not a joke. Moses grew up in Pharaoh's house, and he learned all the arts and sciences and techniques of Pharaoh, then he used it for the liberation of his people. We grew up in Pharaoh's house. And we have learned all of Pharaoh's stuff, both evil and good. Now what we got to do is use what we have learned for the liberation of our people here and all over the world. So brother, we lock hands together as brothers. We love you. Sister and sister, these are the last two questions.
In light of how our American society is separated from families, with you feel the black woman's role in being a directed part of the liberation?
Oh, sister, I'm so glad you asked that question. Because here again is a lot of misconception about the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. We thought that Elijah Muhammad was, I guess they would call him a male chauvinist. And if you go by outer appearances, it would seem that way. But I want to say this about Mr. Muhammad. In the early 30s, do you know he had women ministers? This is true. Those women ministers, sister ministers we call them, were so fiery, brothers would sit on the front row and they couldn't help but accept the teachings after the sisters got through walking on them. But it reinforced the old thing coming up through the matriarchal society that America produced. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad felt, and I like his rationale, that he had to pull the sister back and push the brother out, whether he was qualified or not. Get out there and make an attempt to leave. Do you know why? Because if we didn't do that, we would continue to hide behind the fearlessness, the courage, the bravery, the intelligence of our women folk. This is not a denial of what our women had. But how could we ever assert ourselves as men unless somebody pushed us out there and made us do it? So what the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did, if you notice, in the early 30s, we didn't have women that had college degrees or even high school diplomas. We were mostly unlearned. He pulled the sisters in, pushed the brother out, told the sisters, hear me now, that your base of operations is the home. Your base, not your place, your base. Because the art of homemaking is lost to black women. And I do not care how much intellectual expertise you gather. If you don't know how to make a man happy, you ultimately are not happy yourself. And the art of making a man happy is the art of producing a heavenly home environment. For the strength of a nation is in the strength of male and female commitment to each other. The strength of a nation is in the strength of its family. And the strength of a family is in the strength of the home. You see that? All right? So, I'm going to say this to you, sister. As God is my judge, we don't ever want to see our woman walking behind us. We are revolutionaries. In a very unique sort of way, our women had to step back in order for us to grow in leadership. You know why? Because a woman cannot respect a man who refuses to take his place. And when a woman finds that a man refuses to take his place and doesn't show her that he is worthy of being honored, she treats him like a child. And most of our women do not have men, they have children that they nurture. And this is why a woman can actually take off her brassiere and just jiggle her breast in a man's face and he go wild. We should have been off the breast since we were 2 years old. But we got children around here running after boobs, running after butt. And this woman knows you're nothing but a child and a chump. But I'm going to tell you, brother, what is making me a man? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, when I was no man at all, taught my wife to respect me, not for what I was, but for what I had the potential of being. Now hear me. That wife of mine, as a sister in the Muslim girls training class, learned how to show me respect even when I wasn't worthy of it. I've been married 25 years to the same woman. Hear me now, brother. And I'm growing into a man today because that woman knew how to help me to become one. the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, when he asks you for something, show him respect. Honor him. I mean, I was worthy of it, but that woman honored me. She would say to me, and this was no subservient thing now, because I only struck her once in 25 years. When I struck her that once, she struck me back immediately, and that was the end of them striking days. So it ain't no subservient thing, but that woman, honest to God, that woman that is my wife, she handled me beautifully. We've had arguments, but never them kind of arguments where, it gets to this point. She knew when I was reaching that point that would make me less than a man, because you're always less than a man when you got to beat up a woman. She would, she would just be quiet. And later on, I would come to see what she was saying. Women are very artful, brother. And don't you know, sister, if you can make a man think about you in the future, how you like to. You put on high heel shoes and put on a foxy dress, the man is reading a book. You want to read a book. You don't want to be bothered like that, but you want his attention. You know how to get it. Just walk in, make a little noise, and you move in such a way that when he looks up in the book, he's got the picture. And after the picture develops, you know he don't want no book no more. He wants you. Sisters know how to do that thing. Sisters know how to suggest to a man's mind. I've actually had conversations with sisters. And they be trying to talk into a romantic thing. Oh, brother. Well, the brother's not too bad himself, but he never gets by a woman see you coming long before you even start your journey, brother. But she plays like she don't know what you're up for. But I ain't never met a dumb woman in my life. It's my... Well, sister, if you can do that artfully to suggest into a man's mind, those kind of things, don't you know if you learn how to suggest other things to his mind, you can build him up that way. Am I right? Thanks to Allah for the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the way he taught. That's the reason I'm able to come here and leave Chicago and fly here. And my wife is not worried about her husband. And I'm not worried about my wife. And I could leave here and go into another part of the country. But that woman knows that my commitment is to black people, and her commitment is to help me in my commitment to the struggle of liberation for our people. So I expect to be with this woman until they put me in the earth. And I'm telling you, brothers and sisters, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad produced that. Brothers, you don't have to stand, all right, because I can't see the people. Yeah. I just want to look at it. And so, in fully answering your question, sister, your role is right beside the question. Your role is to develop all of your talents, capabilities, and utilize those capabilities for the struggle of liberation. If it's flying a plane, if it's going into outer space, if it's working in the chemistry lab, or if it's running a factory, running a school, whatever it is, if you've got the quality and capability to do it, that's what you must do. But never forsake the home base, because without the home, you don't have nothing in the factory that will keep you happy, nothing in space that will keep you happy, because your happiness is a man. And a man's happiness is woman. That's his comfort happiness. But the real happiness of a man is seeing his ideas come to fruition. And that we complement each other. That's our role. So let's not join women's liberation movements. I don't want to see you marching with white women for women's liberation. Because you ain't got nothing to be liberated from that they got. So you ain't never had no man to rule you. Now, no black man, he don't rule you. He may brutalize you, but he don't rule you. Now, there is a difference, you know. Because you have never had no non-private thoughts about it. I mean, you know, where he's coming from. You just choose to go along with it. But you see him, so you don't need that. What you need is for this man to grow up and see you not as an instrument of pleasure. That all he wants you for is the bed, and after that's over, he's finished with you. What we got to see is that our women have a lot to do about the development of our world. You see this paper? The final call. This is our first paper. And I hope that you will read it. We're going to try to perfect it, make it better every edition. But you know who helped me to put this out? You know why I wanted a woman to help me with this paper? I didn't want a man. I wanted a woman. I had something in the back of my mind. I had an idea for the paper. But like a man has a sperm, he gives it to a woman. Does she give him back a sperm? She evolves, develops that sperm, and gives him back a child. Don't you know there's an aesthetic quality in a woman that represents the beauty of the divine creator? Men seem like they're satisfied in a bungalow. You get a room or a house, whatever it is, turn it over to her and say, go ahead, baby, beautify it. She'll take a common thing and she'll beautify it, amplify it, and when you see it, you won't hardly recognize it. She'll take the germ of what you got and she'll bring you back something that's right. She can take your ideas, and when she gets finished with your idea, she'll have life and beauty in that idea. That's why when you leave a woman out of things, you leave one of the most important ingredients in forming the thing out of it. That's why all male-dominated society is sick, because it don't reflect the creative property. See this paper? When you touch it, feels good. I knew it, I'm sure enough. I hate hard things, you know what I mean? What would I look like snuggled up with a man? Big old hard dude. I don't know how in the hell you brothers can do that thing. Anyway, you explain that in court later. I wanted a paper that was soft, that had some feel to it, and when you feel it, you know that somebody cares. When you look how well laid out that thing is. That sister did that. I wanted the substance of it, we could give her, but I wanted her to put the aesthetic quality to it and beautify the substance. And that's what she did. I think she did a beautiful job, and I love her for it. And I'm saying that that's what I had in my mind. And I'm telling you, brother, the misuse of the woman will be the destruction of our nation. The proper use of the woman is the proper use of yourself and the furthering of your nation. When you put her down, you put yourself down. When you pick her up, you pick yourself up, because she is and represents the future of you. So when you mistreat a woman, you ain't just mistreating her. You hate the future. That's your future. Brother, be careful how you put your hand in your future's face. Because you see that sister? When she's carrying that life for you, brother, she can do something to that life while she's carrying it to turn it against you right from here. Now, you don't think so. But brother, scientists are beginning to prove that a sister, if she smokes, that smoke will affect the lifespan of her child. If she drinks, her alcohol will kill the lifespan of that child and interfere with that child's brain and motor function, because you're bathing the child in alcohol as you're drunk it, carrying a new life.
Well, if you can do that physically, you can also do that mentally by the things you think while you're carrying and forming new life. And the way she thinks, brother, is largely the way we treat her. I mean, we got a lot to learn about life and how to handle life properly. Okay? Thank you for listening.